My name is Ruby Carter. I'm 30 years old, and I've spent nearly a third of my life devoted to Carter and Sons, a construction company founded by my grandfather and expanded by my father. While my peers were posting beach photos from Florida or planning lavish weddings, I was knee-deep in job sites across Texas, living on cold coffee and blueprints smudged with dirt. My childhood didn't look like anyone else's in our small town of Arlington. While other little girls played with dolls, I sat beneath my father's desk, listening to him yell at suppliers and scribbling down numbers from old invoices. By the time I was 9, I could tell the difference between a foundation pile and a concrete beam. At 12, I manned the front desk during summer breaks, and no customer ever realized I was just a middle schooler. My father, Douglas Carter, used to pat me on the shoulder in front of clients and say, "This girl was born to run the company. One day, everything here will be hers." I took those words as sacred, and I lived by them. When I graduated high school, I didn't hesitate. I majored in business administration with a minor in construction project management. I turned down 3 prestigious scholarships to attend the same university my father went to, because he said if you want to carry on the legacy, you start from the roots. 4 years later, I graduated top of my class. No celebration, no parties. I went straight to work at the company the following Monday. From that point on, I was practically fused to the job. I got to the office by 6 a.m. and didn't leave until 8 p.m. Some weeks I slept on the conference room couch just to keep up with deadlines. I knew every major client's birthday, their favorite drink, their wife's anniversary, building relationships brick by brick, just like the homes we constructed. Thanks to a management system I created, project timelines were shortened by an average of 30%, revenue nearly doubled over 3 years. But I didn't have time to celebrate those numbers. 2 serious relationships collapsed because I was too busy to love. Friends slowly disappeared from my life after dozens of declined invitations. I even missed my best friend's wedding to personally finalize a supply contract for our biggest project of the year. I didn't complain, because I believed all those sacrifices had purpose, that one day, when my father retired, this company would be mine, just like he promised. I believed he was a man of his word. I believed hard work never went unrewarded. I still remember the day Chloe Carter walked through the office door after nearly a decade away, as if she'd never left. Chloe is 2 years older than me, my sister, and the one our parents always called the free spirit of the family. While I buried myself in project timelines and construction budgets, she wandered through Europe with an old camera and a rotating cast of boyfriends with bad Italian accents. The last time I saw her was at our grandmother's funeral, the only person in the family who had ever dared tell Chloe she was living a directionless life. After that, she vanished again, leaving behind rumors of a gallery in Lyon and a lover who had suddenly found himself through meditation. And yet that morning, while I was in a meeting with the site supervisors about cracked concrete at the Austin Hills subdivision, the conference room door swung open. Chloe stood there, short hair, red lipstick, wearing a white blazer like she was about to host a talk show instead of attending a construction debrief. "Hi," she said, her voice annoyingly casual. "Dad asked me to drop off the draft of the new logo." I nearly dropped my pen. A new logo? A draft? Chloe? After the meeting, I went straight to my father's office without knocking. He was sipping coffee and reviewing the project estimate. When I asked what Chloe was doing here, he answered like it was the most normal thing in the world. "I brought her back as creative director. The girl's got an eye for design. It's Carter blood." I needed a few seconds to process that sentence. "Creative director?" I repeated, each word catching in my throat. "Dad, this is a construction company, not a movie studio." He set his mug down and sighed. "Construction needs aesthetics too. Chloe will handle branding, communications, client visuals, things you've never really focused on." Never focused on? I had personally designed dozens of pitch decks, chosen paint palettes for our model homes, and updated the entire brand identity last year, because no one else would do it. I walked out of his office feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Unease. Chloe didn't belong here. She didn't know the process, couldn't read a technical drawing, and definitely didn't have the patience to deal with clients calling at midnight because a tile was laid in the wrong color. But my father acted like she was the missing piece we'd been waiting for. In the weeks that followed, I tried to ignore her presence. She came in late, left early, and often disappeared for 2-hour creative breaks at some downtown cafe. Yet every time I walked past the conference room, I saw her colorful renderings taped across the whiteboard. And the design team, who used to follow technical briefs to the letter, was now listening to Chloe lecture on architectural emotion. I'll admit it, she had an eye. The posters for our new projects looked sharper, the website got a much-needed makeover and actually popped. But none of that changed the fact that she didn't understand construction and definitely didn't deserve the title director. What troubled me most was my father's shift in behavior. He used to loop me into every major meeting, valued my input on budgets, strategies, and long-term planning. Now, he started having closed-door meetings with Chloe. Whenever I walked in, the conversation stopped or shifted. One late evening, I walked past his office and heard them laughing. He said, "If everything goes well, next year you could take on a bigger share of the company." I froze in the hallway, not trusting what I'd just heard. A share? I had poured my entire youth into building this company. And now someone who had just returned from Florence, fresh off another failed relationship, was getting promises after a few brainstorming sessions and a flashy logo? What I didn't know then was that this was just the surface. The real betrayal had already happened, and I, who had carried the weight of this company on my back, was the last one to find out. I stayed late that Friday afternoon, sorting through legal paperwork for the Eastfield project, one we'd just secured but was already running into permitting issues. Chloe, as usual, had vanished around 3 p.m. with her usual excuse of needing creative recharge time. The office was nearly silent, lit only by my desk lamp and the soft hum of a printer still churning out something across the room. I couldn't find the legal agreement folder anywhere. While digging through a filing cabinet that HR hadn't properly reorganized since Chloe's admin restructure plan, I stumbled upon a green file, unlabeled, unindexed. I almost closed it and moved on until bold black letters jumped off the top sheet like a slap in the face. Ownership transfer, Carter and Sons. I collapsed into my chair, fingers trembling as I opened the folder. The notarization date read March 15th, over 6 months ago. I read it again and again, looking for a mistake, anything, but it was all there in clean legal print. 75% of Carter and Sons had been transferred to Chloe Carter. The rest was divided between Douglas and Laura Carter. My name wasn't mentioned. Not one. The shock hit like a high-speed collision. I could barely breathe. The office seemed to tilt, and I gripped the desk to steady myself. I flipped through the pages, desperate to find something, an addendum, a note, even a post-it, that would explain this as a draft or an error. Nothing. Every signature had been inked, every notary stamp perfectly sealed. It had all been done behind my back. I walked out of the records room holding the folder and nearly ran straight into Eleanor, our admin manager, who had been here since my grandfather's days. She froze when she saw what I was holding. Her eyes were guilty, hesitant. "Eleanor," I asked, voice cracking, "how long have you known about this?" She looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "Ruby, your father told us not to say anything. He said he'd tell you when the time was right." I clutched the folder tighter, the sound of the paper crinkling sharp in the silence. When the time was right? It's been 6 months, Eleanor. I've been waking up at 5 a.m., crashing on the office couch, signing every contract, while this entire company already decided I don't belong. She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. I turned, grabbed my bag, folded the folder shut, and left. I don't remember how I drove home, only that at one point I stood frozen at a red light, unsure where I was even headed. My apartment felt strangely unfamiliar. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't turn on the TV. I just sat on the couch, the folder still in my hands, the streetlight slicing through the curtains like a blade across my delusions. I thought of every promise my father ever made. You'll take over the company. This future is yours. No one understands Carter and Sons like you. All lies. I had declined offers from 3 major firms, walked away from a whole different life to serve a promise that was never real. I called Maggie, my closest friend since college, the one person who knew how much of myself I'd poured into this business. She didn't need much. Just my voice told her something awful had happened. Give it to me straight, I whispered, my throat dry. They gave everything to Chloe, 75%, in secret. No one told me a thing. There was a beat of silence, then a crash. I could hear her phone hit something hard. What? Ruby, you're kidding, right? Wait, no one at the company told you? This is insane. You can't let this go. I let out a laugh that felt more like a cough. Everyone knew, Maggie. I'm the only idiot still grinding like a mule. We sat in silence for a long moment. And then a thought came. Cold. Precise. If they want Chloe in charge, let her run it. I won't save them anymore. I won't be the silent gear in this machine. As of today, I stopped. Sunday evening, I shut up at my parents' house as usual. No one knew what I had found. I said nothing, gave no hint, just carried my usual handbag with one carefully hidden folder inside. The house was lit up, the scent of roast and mashed potatoes hanging thick in the air, like everything was still normal. My mother, Laura, greeted me with a bright smile. Chloe was pouring wine, laughing with my father in the kitchen. You're right on time, my mom said, giving me her usual light hug. Your father was just telling us about the new Westlake deal. Chloe's got some bold new ideas. I gave a half smile. Sounds great, Mom. We sat down. The air was full of food, wine, and something heavier. Pretense. Chloe was rambling about emotional structure and her new design proposal. My dad nodded nonstop. Mom kept pouring wine for everyone, except me. I speared a piece of cold meat and waited. Waited until they thought I'd stay quiet like every other week. Ruby, my dad finally said, I'll need you to finalize the quantity report for Larkspur next week. Chloe's planning the campaign. She'll need hard data. I looked up, meeting his eyes. You still think I work for the company? Silence. Chloe stopped chewing. My mom awkwardly lowered her glass. My dad frowned. What are you talking about? I pulled the folder from my bag and placed it on the table. Ownership transfer documents. I found them Friday. When were you planning to tell me that the company hasn't been mine for over 6 months? His face froze. Chloe stared at her napkin like it could save her. Mom's hands began to tremble. Ruby, just listen, my mother began. No need to explain. I cut her off. I just want to know. Why? What did I do wrong? Dad cleared his throat, speaking in the same steely tone he used on difficult contractors. It was a strategic decision. Chloe brings a fresh perspective, creative ideas, new connections, different angles. I laughed. Dry, humorless. You mean the youth market strategy I pitched 3 years ago that you called overcomplicated? Or the brand tracking QR system I suggested that got labeled gimmicky? It was responded, You never believed I was creative, did you? My voice shook, but I didn't retreat. I've worked day and night for 10 years. No holidays, no dating, no life. Every major deal came from my grind. And then Chloe waltzes back from a failed relationship and a few colorful sketches, and you hand her the company? Dad's tone hardened. Chloe has strengths you don't, like leaving the office at 3 p.m. or ignoring emails for 2 weeks. You're being emotional, my mother interjected, trying to reel me back. We're family. This is an internal. Families don't stab each other in the back. I stood, slamming my hand on the table. I'm not the silent workhorse here. I'm not your default operations mule while someone else takes the credit. Chloe finally looked at me, no longer avoiding eye contact. Ruby, I didn't know Dad transferred that much. I thought it was just a small. I looked at her, not angry like I was at my parents, but deeply disappointed. You signed the papers, Chloe. You don't get to say you didn't know. The air turned thick as glue. I took a breath, steadying myself. I quit, I said clearly, starting tomorrow. No more 2 a.m. emails, no more last-minute negotiations, no more carrying responsibilities. Chloe won't touch. Ruby, you can't, my father snapped, face red. I can and I will, I stared at him. Equal for the first time. No bowing, no asking. From now on, Chloe runs the show. She's the owner, right? Let her save the company. I grabbed my bag and walked out. No one tried to stop me. Just the clinking of silverware behind me. I didn't look back. Outside, the wind was picking up. A storm might be coming. But this time, I wasn't afraid. I had nothing left to lose, and no reason to stay. Monday morning, for the first time in 10 years, I didn't jump out of bed at 5:30. No checking emails, no rushing to the job site, no answering calls from the estimates team. I lay there, letting sunlight pour through the curtains, feeling hollow, but strangely relieved. It unplugged the company phone, disabled syncing, and deleted all internal apps. For the first time, I realized I was no longer Ruby Carter, Director of Project Operations. I was just Ruby, a woman who had finally shed the weight of sacrifice. The first 3 days passed in silence. No calls, no messages. I cleaned my apartment, dusted off the espresso machine I never used, and for the first time walked through the park without blueprint tubes or subcontractor calls. On the 4th day, my personal phone rang. I hadn't saved the number, but I knew exactly who it was. "Ruby," my father barked. "Are you free? I need you at the office. It's serious." I didn't answer right away. He growled, "Stanton Group is pulling out of the North Shore deal. Over $11 million. Chloe can't fix it. Everyone's panicking." I raised an eyebrow. "I don't work there anymore, remember?" "Don't be stubborn," he snapped. "Engineering's in chaos. Chloe sent the wrong schematics, and she signed off on the wrong inspection report. Now they're threatening a lawsuit." I paused, then replied calmly, "I already told you. I quit. Chloe owns it now. Let her fix it." "She can't," he shouted. "You know that." I sat upright, my voice cold. "I know. But you made your choice." I hung up. That evening, Maggie showed up with pizza and 2 sodas. She laughed at the sight of me in an oversized tee, clipping my nails in the living room. "I've never seen you like this. You almost look normal." "Normal and unemployed," I smirked. She tilted her head. "What if they beg you to come back?" I didn't answer. I didn't want revenge, but I also wasn't going to save them like before, not without conditions. Thursday morning, I got an email from Mr. Hal Whitaker, CEO of Stanton Group, our biggest client and someone I'd personally managed for 3 years. Subject: North Shore project status. Urgent message. Ruby, I'm sorry to reach you through your personal email, but Chloe hasn't responded appropriately, and no one at the company has proposed a viable solution. The project is stalled, timeline blown, staffing in disarray. If you don't return, we'll have to go with another contractor. I'd like to speak with you directly, as soon as possible. I read it multiple times, then sighed. They were starting to realize where the real value had been all along, but I wasn't ready to return. Not until the truth was acknowledged. On Friday, my mother called. Her voice, unlike my father's, trembled. "Sweetheart, we know we were wrong. Your father, he's being stubborn, but he's worried. Chloe, she's nearly breaking down. Could you at least meet with us once? Just talk, calmly?" I closed my eyes. The image of me in the dark reading the ownership transfer flashed again. That cold, locked-out feeling. "I'll think about it," I whispered. At exactly 7 p.m., I got a message from the office landline. A photo. Empty conference room, a whiteboard scribbled with red-crossed plans and a note scribbled beside it. "Chloe's lost control. Douglas is panicking. They need you, Eleanor." I sat still. Something stirred deep in my chest. Not pity, but a sense of duty, one I'd carried and had stolen from me. I stood up, opened my laptop, and began listing every mistake Chloe had made over the past 6 months. Mistakes I used to fix quietly. Then I outlined the Stanton contract milestones, linked accounts, and a crisis management plan. I wasn't sure if I'd return, but if I did, this time it would be on my terms. No more silent sacrifice, no more being handed responsibilities without being given power. Carter and Sons was cracking, and if they wanted me to save it, they'd have to face the truth, all of it, no dodging, no pretending. Saturday afternoon, my father called for the third time in 24 hours. This time I answered. "Ruby," he blurted, "we need to talk. In person." "Your choice of time and place," I replied coolly, "but if this is about asking me to come back, you'd better be ready to hear my terms." He paused. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m., third floor conference room." Sunday morning, I walked into Carter and Sons with a completely different feeling. I wasn't a loyal employee. I wasn't the daughter who gave everything for family pride. I was the one with leverage. The conference room hadn't changed, but the energy had. My father sat at the head of the table, visibly drained. Chloe sat beside him, quiet. My mother stood near the water cooler, silent. I placed my laptop on the table and opened a prepared document. "Before we start, I want you to know I've received an official offer from Morgan Construction, double the salary, profit share, and the role of Chief Operating Officer. If I accept, at least 3 major clients will follow me, Stanton included." Chloe leaned forward. "Ruby, I know you're hurt, but don't push this too far." "I'm not pushing," I interrupted. "I'm reclaiming what was mine." My father frowned. "What do you want?" I looked him dead in the eye. 40% ownership, a formal seat on the board, and a clear work agreement, no more than 45 hours a week, 3 weeks of paid vacation annually. No more silent sacrifices. If I return, it's as a co-owner, not a placeholder while others take credit. He leaned back, arms crossed. My mother set her water down. "Could you be flexible? 40% seems high." I didn't budge. "I've run 90% of this company's systems for 7 years. I'm not begging, I'm demanding what I've earned." "What about Chloe?" she asked softly. I turned to my sister. "She keeps 35%. You and Dad split 25. I'm not stealing anything. I'm taking back what was excluded from the deal." Chloe looked at our father, then surprised me. "You're better at operations than I am. I was too overconfident. If Dad agrees, I'm willing to transfer 15% to you." I didn't hide my surprise, but I kept my tone firm. "Good. Then the remaining 10 comes from your shares." My father remained silent. I knew he was weighing the loss. 10% would sting. But losing Stanton and maybe North Shore and Parkview would be devastating. He suddenly stood, walked to the window, stared at the parking lot. A minute passed. Then he turned back. "Fine," he said, voice gravelly, 40%. Board seat, and you'll co-run the firm with Chloe. But one condition." I folded my arms. "Go ahead." "You commit to stay for at least 3 years. No poaching clients, no damaging Carter and Sons if disputes happen." I nodded. "As long as voting rights reflect ownership, no one gets overruled." We shook hands. His grip felt colder than I remembered. Chloe smiled faintly, like she'd just set down a boulder. Before leaving the room, I turned back. "One last thing. Starting next week, we're overhauling operations. New standards. No more burnout culture. If you want to retain good people, start there." No one objected. I walked out of the office, head high. I didn't win through fury. I won through clarity. We met again a week later, not at Carter and Sons, but at a small Italian restaurant by the Trinity River, where my father had once held his 30th wedding anniversary. This time there were no balloons or cake, just a quiet table, candlelight, and 4 people trying to clean up the mess they had all helped create. I arrived on time, Chloe was already seated, tense but no longer avoiding my gaze like before. My parents sat across from each other, and for the first time in months, my mother wasn't hiding her worry behind her usual softness. As I pulled out my chair, Chloe spoke first. "Thank you for coming, Ruby. Before we discuss anything, I want to say one thing. From the heart. I'm sorry." I looked up and met her eyes. No smugness, no defensiveness, just exhaustion and sincerity. "I didn't understand how much you were carrying. I thought showing up here and there was enough, but when you stepped away, I saw clearly how much you were doing behind the scenes." I stayed silent. Chloe took a deep breath, then looked at our father. "And Dad," she continued, "you need to say what needs to be said." My father frowned, clearly uncomfortable, but he put down his silverware and clasped his hands together. "I was wrong," he said plainly. "I chose what was easiest for the family, but hardest on the one who deserved better. I didn't think you'd actually leave. I assumed you'd keep pushing through, like always." I looked at him for a moment, then turned to my mother. She hadn't spoken yet, but her hands beneath the table were clutching a napkin into wrinkles. "I want to be clear," I said. "I'm not coming back to patch things up. I'm coming back as a partner, and I won't tolerate silent sacrifices being treated as expected anymore." All three of them nodded. The meal eased up after that. The creamy mushroom linguine was just as good as I remembered, but this time I wasn't mentally juggling unanswered emails or unfinished proposals. I just ate and listened. As dessert arrived, Harold, the family's attorney, joined our table. He brought a draft outlining the updated ownership structure and legal rights. According to the new agreement, Chloe voluntarily transferred 35% of her shares to me. Held 40%, Chloe retained 40%. Our parents shared the remaining 20%. I was appointed Chief Operating Officer, overseeing internal operations, finance, and project management. Chloe became Chief Creative and Client Officer, handling marketing, partnerships, and brand image. All major decisions required at least 2 of 3 votes from primary stakeholders. Harold looked at me. "Anything you want to add, Ruby?" I shook my head. "Just one final clause, a sustainable work culture. Maximum of 45 hours per week for senior staff, 3 weeks of paid leave annually is mandatory." My father raised an eyebrow, but my mother nodded immediately. "It's good for mental and physical health. We need that." Chloe gave a small laugh. "And let's start by not sending emails after 8 p.m. I nodded. "Deal." As everyone signed the draft, I felt relief, not just because I'd won, but because I was finally being treated as a person of value, not a silent gear in a family machine. The following week, we returned to the office. No banners, no celebration, just surprised looks from staff and a few hopeful nods. We held an all-hands meeting. I stood beside Chloe to present the new leadership structure, clearly defining responsibilities, committing to manageable workloads, launching a smart time management system, and announcing the company's first employee wellness fund. The meeting ended with genuine applause. Eleanor, the one who used to avoid eye contact with me, approached quietly and said, "The company's going to be different this time, Ruby." I nodded. "And it starts with us." That night, I didn't stay late. I closed my laptop at 6 o'clock sharp, turned off the lights, and left as the sun dipped behind the west-facing buildings. Walking past the parking lot, I spotted Chloe, still in the conference room, sketching ideas for a new marketing campaign on the whiteboard. I didn't go in, I just watched for a moment, then smiled. Maybe, for the first time in our lives, we weren't 2 sides pulling against each other. We were 2 halves finally learning how to move in the same direction. Even if it took too long to get there. 6 months after that Riverside restaurant meeting, Carter and Sons entered a strange but steady recovery. Structured, calm, and finally livable. Gone were the sleepless nights and 1 a.m. crisis calls. In their place, clear schedules, manageable workloads, and, for the first time ever, time to actually live. The Stanton Group kept their contract after I personally restructured our entire execution plan and set clear delivery timelines. They even signed a second contract, this one for 3 years. Other clients noticed the shift too: better performance, brighter team morale, and proposals that didn't read like last-minute panic dumps. Surprisingly, Chloe grew into her new role. Once she no longer felt the need to act like me, she led marketing with her own voice. Her campaigns became emotionally resonant, something I couldn't replicate. She gave the company soul, I kept it steady. We learned to negotiate instead of clash. We still argued, but no longer to win, only to move forward. As for me, I started reclaiming my life. No longer Douglas's daughter or the one holding everything up. Just Ruby, 30 years old and finally in charge of herself. I took yoga every Monday morning, and every Thursday night I had dinner dates with Adam, an interior design engineer I met during the Fort Greene project. He drank peppermint tea, played awful piano, but listened in a way no man ever had. I told him everything, the shame, the hurt. He didn't offer fixes, just one sentence that stayed with me. You don't have to prove anything to them anymore, you already did. Even my relationship with my family changed. Every second Sunday of the month we had dinner. No business talk, my dad spoke less, but didn't look at me like I was awaiting orders. My mom stopped pushing marriage or babies, and for the first time ever asked what I liked to eat. One late fall afternoon, while I was working in the glass office upstairs, my dad walked in. No knock, as usual, but no files, no budget questions either. I just wanted to say, he hesitated, rare for him, that I'm proud of you, not for coming back, but for knowing when to leave and when to draw your lines. I sat silent for a moment, then replied softly, I just learned to value myself as much as the work I do. He nodded and left, the door gently ajar behind him. I stayed in that room long after closing, watching the sunset fall across the parking lot where I used to sit at 5 a.m., bracing myself for another battle. Now I walk in with a different stance. Not to prove anything, but to build something. Carter and Sons had changed. So had I, and for the first time, I wasn't stuck inside someone else's definition of who I should be. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Chloe and I will still argue over font choices or ad budgets. Maybe Dad will slip up in a meeting. Maybe I'll fail a project for reasons no one can control. But I know this, I will never lose myself again, not for duty, not for guilt, and definitely not for promises that only serve others. I've reclaimed the right to decide for my work and for my life. And to me, that's worth more than any CEO title ever could be. Ruby's story is a powerful reminder that sacrifice means nothing when met with silence and treated as default. In real life, if you're giving your all and still going unseen, don't be afraid to set terms or walk away from places that treat you like a tool instead of a person. Only when you stand your ground can you reclaim not just fairness, but the right to steer your own life. Your worth isn't defined by endurance, it's defined by the boundaries you dare to set. What do you think of Ruby's choice? Was she too firm, or finally claiming what she deserved? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful family stories.